So what can I tell you? What are we talking about?
So,
Shows, huh?
we're talking about the upcoming Kent Stage shows. It's kind of the main talking point.
Mhm.
So we'll start with the basics. Tell me a little bit about these upcoming shows.
Okay. Hmm. Well, we're doing it uh, as a trio with some help with a couple other guys that I worked with before. So it's Daniel Pecchio, Tommy Dubeck, and myself, and it's a blast. We haven't really played together for 40 years, over 40 years. I would show up sometimes and play with the Resonators, but this is the first time that Daniel, Tommy, and I are playing together, playing these songs from the first three MSB albums. And it's a blast. There's songs we're playing that we never played as a band because we're concentrating on tunes, this kind of deep cuts from the first few albums. So there's a lot of harmonies, which we didn't do much of really, except for things like "Nothing's Going to Change My Mind." So a lot of the other songs on those albums, they were thick with three-part harmonies, and we're reproducing some of that again. And one of the things that's really fun and exciting about it is that we're taking a fresh look at some of these songs. We can look back at it and get some perspective on it. And I've done this with several of them and gone, if I was to do this now, if I was producing that band with those young guys, what would I suggest to them to do? And so I've done that. And I've done some mixing up of stuff. One of the songs I added a new bridge to, and changed the groove on some of the songs, and it's just been a blast because it's so much fun working with the guys. There's just magic when Tommy and Daniel and I get together. It clicks in such a special way.
It's very cool. So, how did the idea to kind of do this show come together?
It was I would have lunch with Daniel, and I would see Tommy at gigs and stuff like that. And um, Tommy, one time we were talking on the phone. He says, "Well, do you want to get together like and have lunch with Daniel and I?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." Okay. So it came to town, and I had this in the back of my mind, and so I talked to them both about the idea of let's do a show. Let's do that material from the first three albums. I wrote a lot of that material, and we always loved doing Michael's songs. Let's do it again. The three of us, let's do that magic again, and that's basically what we did.
Very cool. So, how did I guess, kind of deciding what you were going to choose to do? Because that's a lot of history to kind of unpack.
Right. Yeah. Um, I suggested that we take uh, we take a rocking approach to it, but that we do with acoustic guitars because I wanted to make some separation between what the Resonators and what we're doing and what we were going to do. I didn't want to treat it as a tribute, so it's not a tribute that we're doing. We're not a tribute band. We're doing our material, and I include Michael's songs from that era as our material. Um, and it's the sound that we recorded, the sound that we created, uh, and we get to play around with it again and have the joy of doing it again.
Excellent. So, I was kind of rehearsing together and discussing this together, bringing back like a lot of memories.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. We had the most amazing experience in the studio recording the albums with Bill Simzik. He was our producer, and he had already produced two solo albums with Michael. Michael and he were good friends. Bill was superstar producer. I mean, he was at that time we were working with him. He was producing the Eagles, and part of the time he was recording with the Eagles, and they were recording Hotel California. And this is the time frame that it was in. Bill was doing a Jay Giles band. He'd done BB King's "The Thrill Is Gone," which was a huge record. It just goes on and on. He did the Who, he did Seeger, he did all sorts of people through the years. Just an amazing guy and so much fun. So here we are with these young guys coming in for the first time. Tommy and I had never been really in the studio. We'd done demos and stuff, but we were going in to cut an album with Bill, and Bill created such a fun environment. He was the coach. So we went in there, we're all fired up to do this material, and we'd start playing the song, and Bill would say, "Whoa, hold on there, let's slow this down a little bit." Bill was a big fan of R&B music. He was all about the groove, and he was teaching us about that. To pull it back, and get into the feel of the song, let the groove happen. So we had a blast. We'd go out to dinner every night and stay up and record all night long. Get up the next day. It was down in Miami, so we get up the next day. We were staying at the Thunderbird Hotel Motel which had a big pool out back, and we go out and we sit by the pool for an hour or so just to wake up and recover from the night before. And then we go back in the studio and do it again. What could be better? It's perfect life for, 24-year-old rock musician.
Very nice. Interesting. So, I kind of want to ask, how were those early days? I mean, it's got to be very interesting being like a band coming up in the Ohio scene.
Yeah. Well, we were the Ohio scene, but we were touring nationally. We were touring all over the country with acts like, well, there's a bunch of acts that just come out at the same time we were. Cheap Trick, Rush, Foreigner. And so all of us would be out there doing this thing, and all of a sudden one of them would break. The band that broke first was Foreigner. They had their first album out, we're touring with them. We're opening acts for like Ted Nugent or whoever. And then all of a sudden we're like looking at the charts, and Foreigner's like shooting up the charts. They're breaking through. The rest of us are going, damn, when's that going to happen for us? It was just so much fun because we're all in the same boat. I mean, this is when Rush first started. They had one song out, I think, Working Man or something like that. I forget the exact title of it, but that was their first single. So it was before all the big years of Rush and everything that they ended up doing. Cheap Tricks, same thing, first album. We were all in the same boat. We were all, touring nonstop to get our music in front of people.
Very cool. How did you guys kind of find each other out here? Like, how did you initially get together?
Well, Daniel was, of course, in Glass Harp. And I was living in Colorado. Tommy was in a band called Circus. And Michael was doing his solo albums. The guy I went to high school with, who was a friend, David Spiro, we graduated around the same time, Beechwood High School. We had kind of on and off stayed in touch after high school. And David called me one day out in California, said, I'm managing this artist. I think he's really good. I think you'll like him. He's looking for a guitar player. Would you be interested? It was like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So I was working at a record store at the time. And they had the records. They had the first single, which was from the second album, because that was around the time, which is Yours for a Song. That was the name of the single. And that's also the album that had the first version of Show on the Road. And then the first album had Rose with Bitter. So I took all these albums home and I was listening to them. I thought, wow, I really like this guy's voice, and he's got great songs, and he's made some terrific records. I'd like to be involved with this. So I flew back to Cleveland. My manager flew me back, and Michael and I sat down, each of us with our acoustic guitars, and he'd play me a few songs. I'd play him a few songs. We'd sing along with each other. And we got to the end of that. He said, let's do this. You want to join this? I'm going to start a band. You want to join it as a guitar player? I said, yeah, I'd love to do this. So that was how it started for me. And then after that, we sat around for a while. Probably not very long. I can't remember now, maybe a few weeks after I moved back to Cleveland. And he said, well, we should start putting the band together. I have a bass player in mind, Daniel Peck. I said, oh, yeah, I've seen Daniel play before. Great singer, great bass player. So he came over, and the three of us sat down, and it clicked right away. The harmonies, the vocals sounded great. And we played as a trio for a while. But we knew that we had to get a drummer so we could become a real rock band, not just a bunch of folkies, country rockers. So we went out, and we went all around Cleveland to the different clubs, and we went to the Agora, and there was a band called Circus there, and really a good band. And Tommy was the drummer, and they were playing things like the Allman Brothers, Whipping Post. They're these long jam tunes, and Tommy was killing it. I mean, he was just amazing. The three of us are standing there going, yeah, this is the guy. I'm going, yeah, this is the guy. We got to get this guy. And so then Tommy came on board, and we just started rehearsing for the first album. We started, Michael and I, shooting songs back and forth and playing them for each other and deciding what kind of material we're going to do. And at that time, we were still a little bit of a country rock band, actually. So there was a lot of harmonies, a lot of acoustic guitars. That carried over to the second album too. That we were getting more electric and more rocking with each song that we did. The second album with Lady's Choice, we were rocking up even more. And then of course we got the Stage Pass, and then we were full blown rock band. And at that point, Bob Polander was in the band too, and we were a very good band. We had a real unique sound, and could really lay into a groove, as you would say.
So it sounds like you guys kind of found your stride with each other right away. Are you guys into the same kind of music? Did you have like a similar,
Yeah,
these bands, we're gonna pull from these bands?
yeah. Michael and I were both real songwriters. I mean, we cared about the lyrics, we cared about the melody, about the chord changes. I think would have back then, and we both for years after that would talk about it. We were both songwriters, and that was where we came from. The song was the most important thing. So we were very much on the same page then. We'd all grown up with the Beatles and the Stones and the Byrds, and uh, we had a very similar background in that way. We'd never played together before. Like I said, I had seen Daniel play with his band Glass Harp, but Daniel and I had never played together either. But there was a lot of acousticy and harmony material within Glass Harp as well. And they were also a jam band. I mean, they could really stretch out and play with Phil Kagi, wonderful guitar player. They really could play well together. And so we started to go in that direction too right away. Michael has a song called "Moving Right Along," which on his first solo album, and it was it was always kind of a jam song. It was much more mellow at that time, and we took it and we turned it into this long extended guitar keyboard jam. Um, yeah,
Very interesting. All right. So kind of want to ask, it seems like you guys have like a lot of fond memories of this era. You guys got along really well. How did you end up sort of parting ways from the band and doing some of your own stuff?
yeah. We had done 3 albums, and I was writing every single day, and I had ideas that I wanted to try out. Um, and that's I was a young Turk, and that's what I did. I just head out on my own. Michael and I parted ways well, and we remained friends after that and supportive of each other. And I set out on my own to do that, to have creative control. And I had a lot of creative control in MSB too. At one point, Michael and I had talked about. Michael had said, I just want this to be a band. I don't want this to be, Michael Stanley. I want this to be a band. We got to think of a band name. We never got to that point, but we called it MSB, and we were a band. But I wanted to do that myself. I wanted to have my own creative vision. I wanted to lead a band because Michael was always really the leader of the band, even though creatively we were equals. And so I struck out on my own to do that.
Has it been kind of, a bit cathartic to be able to get everybody together at this time period?
Oh
You've
yeah,
done your own
yeah,
thing and now you're back together, kind of.
yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time. Michael and I also played together in the '90s, the early '90s, late '80s. We had a band called the Ghost Poets, and Tommy and Bob were involved in that too. As an E-Rock from the Resonators, he was there as the bass player, and Rodney Syka played some percussion on it. So we would meet back up again and do it again. And I was playing a lot after that with Michael Stanley and friends, and then after that we worked together less. But I would always show up and play with him, at least a few times a year. He'd always be glad to see me, bring me out. We'd do nothing's going to change my mind, waste a little time on me, strike up the band. And he was always very generous with making sure people know that I wrote those songs.
I do want to ask a little about, obviously you guys did tour nationally. You had done a lot of work in different areas of the country. You moved, did bands elsewhere, but it's got to be a very interesting experience playing in Ohio, considering you guys have like a really devoted fan base in Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, what's it like
Oh,
when you come back here? Are there people that
yeah.
you're like, okay, wow, that's great to see?
Oh yeah, and people know the lyrics to the songs. They sing along. They know all the songs, and they want to have the experience again. They want to see the three of us play together again. Um, and we're not doing it as nostalgic either. We're doing it very fresh. We're putting a lot of energy that we saved up all these years. We're putting it in together and creating an exciting, vibrant experience from that. Keeping those songs alive. We're not just reproducing them. That was not the intent. To reproduce in exactly the same way. And my thing was, let's do this. Let's not make them relics. Let's put some life into them again and let them grow and take on their own personalities. These songs which have become classics in Ohio.
So I know you did something. I mean, it sounds like this is going to be a very unique set of shows. but shortly after Michael's passing, you guys did a handful of shows in the area that were, very popular, kind of more of a memorial type show, I think.
Hmm.
How do you think this will like differ experience wise?
Well, it's going to be very different. We're not framing it as a memorial to Michael. We're like I said, we want it to be. It's very um, Michael will be there. In spirit, he will be there, and that this was the four of us. That this was our band. It existed as the four of us. That's why it is what it is. Why it was what it was. And so this is my songs, this is Michael's songs. And we all arranged them and played them together. We're not doing it as a tribute. We're not a tribute band. This is an original band. It always was an original band. And we're bringing that back to everybody again, to re-experience it again now. And I think it's an important point. I love playing with the Resonators. I'm playing with them again in December. I hope to keep, working with them. It's a wonderful experience. I love these guys, and I've seen them throughout the years. Such a wonderful band, and it gives us a chance to do Michael's songs. To keep his great reservoir of songs in front of people, and I love doing that. And that's one thing that's done. That's one thing we do with the music. The other thing, which is very different, is with Daniel and Tommy and I, we're doing our songs, like I said, and that's it's very vital. We're not trying to reproduce anything. Even the way that we're doing some of the songs is very new compared to the way they were originally recorded.
Interesting. I know it's also mentioned that there's going to be, sort of stories involved. How do you guys sort of decide what you wanted to talk about?
It's usually pretty obvious because we'll be playing a song and someone will start to reminisce, just like, do you remember when da 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 da? Everybody gets a good laugh out of it, and then that triggers off the next thing that somebody says, another memory that they have. There's so many great stories. It's not going to be hard to come up with something. We're going to have to edit out a lot of stuff, I have a feeling.
Are there probably a few stories that came up that you're like, maybe we're not going to tell that one, but that's a
oh yeah, there's already there's been a discussion of that already. We're not going there. Okay, we're going to stay away from that one.
Fair enough. So you've got these back-to-back shows. Do you kind of foresee there being a bit of a difference in some of the stuff that comes up from like night one to night two?
Oh, I'm sure. Material-wise, we're going to do the same songs both nights because there's a lot of songs. But there's going to be the spontaneity of each of the shows because we're telling the stories. And the stories aren't scripted. I mean, we know at this point we're going to talk about such and such, event or whatever like that. But who knows what happens during the telling of it? It could go anywhere. We're really excited about playing it, like you said, for an Ohio audience. We know that they're going to understand it in a way. It's very personal to them, and they're going to have a lot of fun, I think, with some of the changes we've made, and re-experiencing the songs again, just the way we're re-experiencing them.
So, lastly, do you think that this kind of might lead to more shows between the three of you? Do you want to keep trying to perform your music like this?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would. There's been a little discussion of it. I'm hoping that we will do it some more. I mean, I would like to take these guys in the studio too. I'd like to do some new material. We have the time now. It's not like we're all out on the road or we're all working day jobs. We have the time to make some music, and there is that magic there. And I'd like to get some of that back in front of people again. Do some more shows. Do something. Like I said, this show has we're rocking it, but we're also rocking it with acoustic guitars. And probably the next thing we would do is we would do an electric show. We bring out the electric guitars and get into some longer things like we used to do, some jams, guitar, bass, and drums. And also, I want to definitely mention that the keyboard player and other rhythm guitar player from my band, Donnie Thompson, rhythm guitar, and Ricky Williger on keyboards, they're also joining us for these shows as sidemen for the shows.
Wonderful. So just kind of like round out the sound.
Yeah, well, there's 3-part harmonies on just about every song that we used to do. Tommy does his thing, but he's not actually a singer. We fool around a lot about that. So, and there's a lot of keyboards on the material too. So we have Donnie Thompson wonderful rhythm guitar player. There's always two guitars, Michael and myself. So Donnie's there to pick up some of the guitar and to come in on the harmony vocals, and Ricky's playing a lot of stuff, but he's playing primarily he's playing keyboards. So yeah, to fill in the sound.
Excellent. Anything else you want people to know about, you or the shows?
Come out, share this with us. There's nothing that says it's ever going to happen again. At this point, you don't really know. This could be the only time we ever do it. I hope that's not the case, but there's no guarantees. And no one will be disappointed that comes out. I think people are going to love it. Unique, as well as being experienced. I think people will always remember it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for talking with me. It was great to chat.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
All right. Well, excited for the show. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.